Disney versus the state of Florida. They could be writing books about this story depending on how things unfold in the future. It has the potential to be one of the biggest stories to happen to Disney in recent history, or it could wind up being nothing at all. That's because we're in the middle of it right now. We're kind of living through potential history, Disney history. If this intrigues you, but you haven't any idea what I'm talking about, let me catch you up. Last month, the state of Florida passed the Parental Rights in Education bill that would seek to prevent teachers from discussing sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade. The bill became known as the Don't Say Gay bill, while others have come to refer to it as the Anti-Grooming bill. And of course, due to Disney's presence in the state of Florida, Walt Disney World, and with the LGBTQIA community, people began to look to Disney for comment. They wanted them to take a position. Eventually, Disney did speak out against the bill, even going so far as to say that they were going to start working behind the scenes to have that bill overturned or repealed. To which Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis came out again and said Disney's being woke and asked them to mind their own business, basically. And then a Florida House congressman brought up Reedy Creek. He said if Disney wants to embrace woke ideology, then maybe the state of Florida should reconsider the Reedy Creek Improvement Act. Shots fired. And that's the point. The Reedy Creek thing is where this could get historical. Possibly. There's potential. The Reedy Creek Improvement District and its value to both the state of Florida and to the Walt Disney Company. So why is this historical? Well, if the state of Florida were to repeal the RDIC, as it's commonly known, it would fundamentally change the way Disney operates in Walt Disney World in the state of Florida, and possibly elsewhere. If this intrigues you, but you're still not sure what the Reedy Creek Improvement District is, let me catch you up. The site on which Walt Disney World was built used to be an enormous, uninhabitable swamp. Nothing lived there, nor could anything unless drastic changes were made. We're talking about access to utilities for the most part. The nearest water and power lines were 10 to 15 miles away. Neither Orange nor Osceola counties were equipped to provide the resources needed to help Disney build this park. But the state wanted Disney to build that park in Florida, very badly it seems. The deal made then, the deal being the Reedy Creek Improvement District, essentially gave Disney the same authority, the same responsibility as a local government. You're in charge, the state said. You build everything, you run everything, you pay for everything. Power, water, roads, police, fire, and residents wouldn't have to pay for any of it. This is all coming out of Disney's pocket. But with Disney paying for everything and being in charge of everything, they had complete autonomy. They could do whatever they want, whatever they deemed necessary in order to build and run their theme park. They could do it without any approval from the city or the state, not a single permit, no zoning commissions, no approval committees. You want to build a road connecting, one hotel to another, maybe a monorail system, perhaps a skyway. Go ahead, Disney, it's on you. On this topic, consider how things are done in Anaheim with Disneyland. Let's say Disney wanted to build a skyway connecting the Toy Story parking lot to Disneyland. Well, good luck with that, because there is so many different landowners between the Toy Story lot and Disneyland, so many different rules and regulations and zoning commissions and easements and rights of way. It would never happen. It couldn't happen. It would be next to impossible, is my guess. But in Florida, with Disney basically running their own town, all they had to do was make sure that whatever it is that they were trying to build didn't encroach, didn't violate any sort of environmental restrictions that are in place. The area is protected. But otherwise, they could build whatever they want. As a matter of fact, Ron DeSantis, Florida's governor, even joked that they could build a nuclear power plant. That would be within their right. Technically, they could, I think. Not to say that Disney ever would consider it, that is. They're very heavy into solar. But that was just a joke, that they have complete autonomy there. But that's a tangent that I don't want to get into. The point is that this deal is very good for Disney. They have a very nice deal with the RCID. They can build and evolve their theme park at their leisure without any sort of interference from local governments. And some would argue that it's been an equally good deal for the state of Florida. Walt Disney World has turned Florida into a vacation destination in a way that they probably never could have before. People did travel to Florida, but not in the volume, not in the numbers that they do today, and that's because of Disney World. And all of that came from a piece of property that most considered to be uninhabitable and generated probably $0 of revenue for the state of Florida. And it was done at no cost to the state. So why would the state of Florida put such a good thing at risk? Why would they threaten to repeal legislature that, by all appearances, is benefiting everyone involved? And then when we answer that question, we could ask a similar question, but in Disney's case, should Disney be worried? So let's get to that first question. Why would the state of Florida decide to do this? Well, from my perspective, from what I can gather, it boils down to basically Florida's leadership deciding that they don't want to give preferential treatment to any single business, at least as it relates to government, to operations, because that's what we're talking about. Disney acting as its own form of government, which is, I mean, you have to agree, it's strange. At Reedy Creek, Disney is the government, and it has been that way for more than 50 years, since 1967. And it almost seems impossible to think that that's the case, from our modern perspective, especially when you consider that it's only Disney that operates with this kind of freedom. Universal does not have a similar carve-out, a similar Reedy Creek arrangement for their theme park in Orlando. Everything that Universal builds has to go through the same approval process and committees and zoning as everybody else, and they have to file permits and pay for all those permits and pay for all that stuff. Probably at considerably more cost than it would take for Disney to build at Walt Disney World. And I believe Spencer Roach, the guy who put out that tweet regarding Reedy Creek, also alluded to they believing that Disney's agreement is some sort of tax dodge, which I guess is technically true because they don't pay any local taxes, any county taxes or any city taxes. They do still pay a state tax. But then they also pay for everything, again, for all that infrastructure, water, power, roads, police, fire. Disney pays for all of that. If Reedy Creek were repealed, Disney wouldn't pay for that stuff anymore. They would start paying taxes to the local governments, and then those taxes would pay for those same things. So it's kind of a wash. But I mean, I'm certainly no expert on balance sheets for city governments or for Disney in this case. I don't know if this is a net win or a net loss for Disney or for the city or the county. Who could say? But I mean, one could make that argument that it does look like a wash. Now, some might argue that the state of Florida is bringing up this Reedy Creek thing now only because of Disney's response, their position to the Don't Say Gay bill, that it's retaliation. And I can definitely understand that line of thinking. But I believe it's at least as likely that this is more about timing, that this is maybe something that they've wanted to do for a while, but haven't had to because of Disney's, they got a very strong position in most cases. But Disney has never been more vulnerable politically than it is right now. They're vulnerable. But if Reedy Creek is something that the state of Florida wants to get rid of, then this is the moment. Now is the moment because Disney has never been more vulnerable than it is right now. And by the way, that's practically at no risk to the state. Worst case scenario, if it does, let's say it doesn't get repealed, it's just business as usual. Everybody's doing the same thing that they were doing before, which, by the way, is a pretty good deal. But I don't think that the state is worried about Disney, taking their business elsewhere. They're stuck. They're not stuck. Disney is going to continue operating at Walt Disney World with or without the Reedy Creek situation. But there is risk for Disney. If Reedy Creek goes away, it will dramatically change how they operate. It could actually dramatically change their vigor for updates, for improvements, for expansion at Walt Disney World. Taking Anaheim again as an example, we have seen several projects recently go nowhere because Disney and the city of Anaheim couldn't come to an agreement. Bureaucracy got in the way. Disneyland Forward, for example, it's not about building something new at Disneyland. It's more about a sales pitch to the city of Anaheim just to get them to change how they zone certain parts of Disney property. But Disney can't even start shopping for shovels for Disneyland Forward until they can get the city of Anaheim to call a certain piece of property mixed use instead of commercial. At Disney World, they keep the shovels right next to the blueprints. But if Reedy Creek is repealed, it would create more taxes, more fees, more bureaucracy, more time. Everything will take longer and cost more to do. It would be like Anaheim, or maybe even worse, due to the size and scale of the Walt Disney World Resort. It could even impact Disney's plans to move all of that, the Imagineering and everything to Lake Nona. There's a big move in the process of moving a bunch of Disney's executive offices, etc., from California to Lake Nona, Florida. Maybe they changed their mind on that. Part of the reasons why they're doing that, I'm sure, is the great deal they have with Reedy Creek. So should Disney be worried? Well, I think it's very clear that they want to keep the status quo. They like the Reedy Creek agreement. There have been challenges in the past to this, and they've worked behind the scenes to make sure that it stays in effect. So they do want to maintain the status quo there. But the fact that this is even a conversation right now is kind of dodgy. And I do think that the governor, Florida's governor, Ron DeSantis, has the tenacity to see this all the way through if he were so motivated. But Reedy Creek has existed for, more than 50 years, probably when it shouldn't have. If we were to pretend, for example, that something like this were being proposed today, for sure, there would be language written in the agreement that they would come and revisit the agreement in 3, 5, or 10 years or something like that. At which point, it would probably dissolve because the agreement would have done what it was intended to do. In this case, at Walt Disney World, the agreement was so that Disney would take care of, handle building the Walt Disney World Resort when the city or the state or the county couldn't do it. But the agreement is still here, and I think the reason why it is still here is because everybody is pretty much, at least the people that it touches, the people who are actually literally affected by the agreement, they all like it. Okay, the people who are affected by it don't want to change it. It's people outside of this agreement that are the ones that are looking or talking about changing it. And it's been this way, as I mentioned, for more than 50 years. So the most likely scenario, in my opinion, is that nothing happens at all. And matter of fact, we can't even start talking about this. They can't even present legislature like this until sometime next year. Meanwhile, the governor, as I understand it, doesn't have any sort of executive leverage here. He cannot write an executive order, for example. Legislation has to be brought to him, approved by the House, and then he has to sign off on it. That's not going to happen for another year at least. In fact, Stephen Roach, the guy who brought it up, said, this is just talk right now. This is just an idea that we're talking about. So even he concedes that there's a long way to go before this is a thing that ever actually winds up happening. So that's why I think that nothing is going to change, because everybody but Universal and other theme parks in the state of Florida, but everybody that is affected by this wins. And really the question is, at the end, who wins if they repeal it? Who's the winner? So how does Disney have this conversation? How does Disney get the state, to stop talking about Reedy Creek without losing face with the Disney community? That's the real challenge. Another challenge for Disney to face. A lot of challenges lately. Well, we'll answer that someday. Till then, stay tuned to Fresh Baked, because I believe this is just one chapter in this ongoing saga, this ongoing Disney versus the state of Florida. This is just one chapter. There's more to come. Stay tuned to Fresh Baked. Follow us on Instagram at _FreshBaked, on Twitter at FreshBakedDisney, that's fresh with no E, and on TikTok at FreshBakedDisney. We've also got our website, freshbakedisney.com. And if you like our show and want to show your support, please do consider joining our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/freshbaked. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, everybody. We love you very much. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. Fresh Baked.